Good evening, everyone. Before I begin, I just want to do a little bit of housekeeping just to alert people to where the emergency exits are. We're not expecting that there's going to be a fire alarm. So if you hear an alarm, there's one emergency exit here and there's one down on this corner. So you are all very welcome to Engineers Ireland and to 22 Clyde Road, and it is a particular privilege to have Minister Donohoe here with us this evening. And so to our invited guests, including our corporate partners, it's a pleasure to welcome you on such a cold and windy evening to the launch of Engineers Ireland's Strategy 2017 to 2020. On your way in, you'll all have received a copy of this strategy document. And there are many members of the Engineers Ireland team who are here this evening, and members of council and the executive board. So if anybody has any questions about the strategy and about the commitments that we're giving, please feel free to come and talk to us, and we'll be very happy to explain it. The strategy is also going to be on our website, engineersireland.ie, for anybody who wants further copies or further information. I suppose that it's fair to say that this strategy has been arrived at out of a process of a large degree of consultation up and down the country with our members and with our corporate partners. And it is very heartening to see so many people who contributed to that consultation process in the auditorium with us here this evening. And I suppose one of the key things that we got fed back as part of that consultation process, that was when we were developing the strategy, be ambitious. That was one of the very central themes that came across, this notion of ambition. And the reason that that came out so strongly is because it's very clear that a vibrant engineering sector is critical not only for Ireland and our partners in the European Union, but also globally in growing businesses, developing markets, and addressing the grand challenges that we all have to face, such as climate change. Engineers and engineering turns ideas and research into wealth creation, innovation that improves communities, improves lives, and drives economic and social progress. And we've translated that call for ambition into a new vision for the organisation. So our new vision for Engineers Ireland is a community of creative professionals delivering solutions for society. And we just had a very quick word with the Minister on the way in, and I think it's fair to say, Minister, that idea that is contained in that vision was something that caught your eye. And certainly it was something that came across very strongly in the work that the Council did in developing the new strategic plan. The strategy has been formulated in the context of government policy, a number of different frameworks, and longer-term objectives around areas such as education, innovation, infrastructure investment, and sustainable regional development, to name but a few. The priorities identified in our strategy support these policy frameworks, and they aim to achieve progress by the promotion of STEM and STEM careers, with a particular focus on increasing the future pipeline of engineers, maintaining world-class engineering education standards, which gives Ireland, I think, a competitive advantage when attracting inward investment, building the capacity of the engineering sector in Ireland to compete internationally and become more self-sustaining, a highly skilled professional, including chartered engineers, increasing economic contributions of engineering-related activities across local communities, and ensuring that the contribution of engineering to economic growth, regional development, and social progress is fully recognised and understood. We acknowledge, of course, that our continued success will be contingent on the ability to adapt and to shape the services that we offer to address the needs of our members, and to act as the strongest, most effective voice for engineering in Ireland and beyond. We have a vibrant community of members and volunteers in Ireland and overseas, and a wide range of partners whose efforts, expertise, and influence significantly increases our reach and our impact. Their experience, support, and collaboration is the bedrock of the organisation, and it will be vital to the success of this strategy. At its core, the central purpose of Engineers Ireland will not change. We are a professional development body, and providing services and supports to our members will of course remain central to the work of the organisation. But in a changing environment where businesses are facing tighter budgets, we have to ensure that we're operating efficiently with a very strong governance framework and to have effective controls. By implementing our new strategy through annual business plans and associated metrics and targets and the organisation structure to deliver it, we aim to achieve three simple outcomes. The first is growth. We aim to become a more representative body by expanding our membership base to reflect the broad range of engineering disciplines. Relevance. We want to become influential and dynamic, even more so than we are at present, by building the reputation of Engineers Ireland as a trusted progressive voice, taking a leadership role nationally in relation to issues linked with engineering in Ireland. And impact. We want to become a member-centric developing organisation that develops partnerships and alliances that ultimately support the professional development of our members and the advancement of our members' careers. With any transformational change process, there'll be challenges in that journey, and as Director General, of course, I'm totally focused on and committed to delivering the plan. I know that with the support of our corporate partners, our council, executive board, all of our committees, our members and volunteers, and of course the staff in 22 Clyde Road, we will succeed. It's a pleasure now to hand you over to the President of Engineers Ireland, Dermot Byrne, who will give you more of a sense of the ethos behind the strategy and some core concepts that have been contained in the document. Thank you.
Thank you, Caroline. And good evening, Minister, colleagues, ladies and gentlemen. And it's great to see so many of you here on this very cold January evening. The launch of the new Engineers Ireland strategy for 2017-2020 is indeed a very auspicious occasion for us and represents the culmination of a lot of hard work and dedication of our Engineers Ireland Council, the Executive Board, our staff, our volunteers and our valued partners. And I'd like to echo Caroline's welcome to the Minister for Public Expenditure and Reform, Paschal Donohoe TD, who has very kindly agreed to launch our strategy. And I would also like to thank our guests here this evening, our Engineers Ireland members and our staff for taking the time to be here. The Minister himself, of course, has a strong grounding in engineering principles, having served as Minister for Transport for several years. And during his time as member of Dublin City Council, serving as chair of the Environment and Engineering Strategic Policy Committee. Caroline has already very concisely, I think, and effectively delved into the mechanics of our new strategy and our vision, which is to foster a community of creative professionals delivering solutions for society. So my thoughts today are focused mainly on expanding more on the ethos behind our approach and the common ground, I think, that exists between our values relating to progress, community, trustworthiness and excellence, and the critical work that is being undertaken by the Minister in his department. In working for the common good, planning for the long term and ensuring our society gets value from money in investment, I strongly believe the activities of Engineers Ireland and the engineering sector by extension have clear parallels with the objectives and functions of the Department of Public Expenditure and Reform. And I think that will be clear when the Minister speaks as well. We both seek to deliver well-managed and well-targeted public services in a modernised, effective and accountable manner. In this respect, it is very positive to hear the Minister himself recently outline his priorities to include commitments to progress capital initiatives in transport, flood prevention, health, broadband and school building, as well as a focus on long-term investment. This is something we at Engineers Ireland would strongly endorse. Engineers Ireland wants to work with the Minister and Government to ensure the total capital spending package of over €4.5 billion announced in the budget across a range of government departments will be effectively spent on regional and local roads, flood relief schemes, and the opening of Lewis Cross City in 2017. This increase of almost €400 million on 2016 represents a welcome 26% increase in capital expenditure compared to 2014, and we strongly support the Minister's view that progressing high-capacity public transport should be a priority. Additionally, while some progress has been made in the last number of years relating to broadband infrastructure, an area hugely underpinned by the contribution of engineers, there are still some frustrating delays, I think, within rural areas. And the single most outstanding issue here is the award of the National Broadband Plan intervention to a contractor, and to confirm the deployment schedule nationally. The €15 million earmarked to help progress the plan in 2017 should facilitate this. We also warmly welcome the Minister's decision to bring forward the review of the capital plan to this month, and the additional €2.2 billion committed to housing and to housing-related infrastructure. In this context, we strongly believe that now is an opportune time to consider how long-term infrastructure planning is actually done in Ireland. Engineers Ireland believes a single infrastructure unit is needed to sustainably plan investment in key areas such as housing, transport, education, health, energy, water, and the digital economy. As things stand, planning and delivery in these areas are spread across government departments, each competing for finite funding with multiple levels or layers of decision-making and little central oversight. We believe an independent assessment of our long-term infrastructure needs is required, and then a single planning and delivery unit charged with prioritising and driving critical initiatives should be established, as in the case of the UK and Switzerland. We had a brief discussion with the Minister before this session, so it'll be interesting to hear his views on that. This would support coordination, delivery and execution to ensure that we can meet our infrastructure needs going forward to support sustainable economic prosperity. I read with interest an article recently where the Minister alluded to the potential friction between a growing economy and poor infrastructure, and I believe this point is very well made. Centralised decision-making and implementation quickens up the infrastructure development process hugely. Engineers Ireland contends that a single planning unit has the capacity to eliminate this friction in a cost-effective and depoliticised manner. Additionally, and on behalf of Engineers Ireland, and also at a personal level, as climate change is a subject I feel very strongly about, I also believe the Minister's recent commitment to ensure our infrastructure development meets the requirements set down by the Paris Agreement is extremely timely. And Ireland is making inroads in this respect. In electricity, the transition to a zero-carbon electricity supply is already well underway, with renewable sources now above 25% of the electricity mix, and with a real prospect of achieving the 40% target by 2020, provided we stay the course. And it's interesting to see new records set last night for wind generation on the Irish system. In the heating sector, we must increase the energy efficiency of our residential homes through a process of deep retrofit, and then replace their heating systems with low-carbon heating systems. In transport, an area the Minister is extensively familiar with, there must be an element of behavioural change to support Ireland's emission reduction objectives. Citizens must want to change from oil-based transport and/or be incentivised to do so. The extension of relief from vehicle registration tax on electric vehicles and hybrid vehicles in Budget 2017 was very positive in this respect, as are the broader rollout of bicycle lanes in Dublin and elsewhere and the Dublin Bike Scheme. With road-based transport still equating to 80.6% of all journeys, and private cars making up the majority of that figure at 55.8%, low-carbon alternatives have the potential to make a real impact over time on our environment. Essentially, the engineering sector is ideally equipped to contribute to the long-term national objective of a zero-carbon economy in a cost-effective manner through the technological innovation and ingenuity that is the hallmark of our profession. The water infrastructure challenge, of course, remains an intractable one. While the Expert Commission report on the funding of domestic public water services in Ireland was a welcome addition to the debate relating to water infrastructure, the critical need to secure investment for current and future infrastructure requirements in this area cannot be delayed. Within the annual review of infrastructure in the Engineers Ireland State of Ireland 2016 report, water supply and wastewater infrastructure in Ireland achieved a D grade status, highlighting below standard services which are poorly maintained, frequently unable to meet capacity and requiring immediate investment. Engineers Ireland is determined to work with the relevant departments of government to ensure that the badly needed improvements required by our water infrastructure are delivered. The government's renewed focus on the importance of STEM subjects, that's science, technology, engineering and maths, in schools, as evident in the recent publication of the STEM Education Review Group report and the Action Plan for Education, is also very encouraging. The upturn in student interest in engineering courses is extremely positive, but the economic demand for engineering skills continues to totally outstrip supply. In order to future-proof the country's sustainable economic growth, we need to concertedly build on the renewed student interest in engineering. Ireland, of course, is a small, open economy, and we don't operate in a vacuum. The UK's decision to leave the European Union and the associated uncertainty is a looming challenge for our members, as well as for the broader economy over the coming years. Our sample survey of 3,000 of our member engineers in Northern Ireland, the Republic and the GB region late last year was encouraging in that it showed that the sector is robust and resourceful, with organisations already adapting to the new Brexit business reality. 40% of respondents said they were proactively changing their business strategy to adapt to the new economic reality, with most respondents optimistic that the major impact of Brexit will not be felt for several years. We are acutely focused on helping our members adapt competitively to a national and global economy in great flux, and so we move forward with cautious optimism in an uncertain world. Engineers Ireland has changed a lot in the past 180 years, and we need to continue to adapt to ensure we maintain our relevance to the profession, to the economy and to the broader society. While we in Engineers Ireland adapt to the complex world around us, some things won't change. We will continue to play a vital role in improving the standards of engineering practice in Ireland, greatly facilitated by the dedication of our volunteer members who make an invaluable contribution to their profession. It's only by working together in vibrant collaboration with our members, the engineering profession, the Minister's Department, government and industry partners, that we'll be able to achieve our ambition to improve society and encourage and educate future generations of engineers. In summary, a key facet of our new strategic mission is to foster long-term planning and investment in infrastructure that will help secure Ireland's future success in a stable and sustainable manner, a vision which is clearly shared by the Minister. We now want to launch the next phase of our organisational development by making Engineers Ireland the dynamo in a community of creative professionals that are making this a reality by delivering real and long-term solutions for society. I want to finish by joining with Caroline in expressing our sincere thanks to everyone who has contributed to the development of our new strategy. And I'd like now to call on you to welcome the Minister, and I invite the Minister to address us and to formally launch our strategy. Thank you.
Good evening, everybody, and I want to begin by thanking Dermot and Caroline for the opportunity to come along here this evening and to be associated with the launch of this very, very fine strategic plan. I had the opportunity to have a look at it earlier on in the afternoon, and I was struck by a number of the objectives, strategic goals and the general tone of the report. And two things really struck me from the strategy that was articulated here tonight, that I'm sure you'll all deliver in the coming years. The first one was the explicit recognition of your community as creative professionals. And as somebody who's living beside the construction of Lewis Cross City at the moment, I can see both the professionalism and the creativity of that on a daily basis. And I think it's really good to see something like that called out in a report like this. And the second thing that I really welcomed in your strategy and in your the vision, the mission statement, it talks about making a positive contribution. Here we go, make an impact on society. And again, I think that's very, very welcome, to understand the contribution that the work that you do has not only on the economic performance of our country, but also in terms of how our society feels about itself and about how citizens feel about themselves. So what I want to do, if I may, in the time that's open to me, is obviously, along with your officers here this evening, to be associated with the launch of this strategy. But I want to put this strategy in the broader context of how the government views capital, and I'll do that in a number of different ways. I want to say a few words first about the level of capital investment that we have in our country and what our plans are to address that level of investment in the coming years. Secondly, I'll talk about the current capital plan that we have, and then I'll conclude with some observations in relation to how I am looking to conduct the review of the capital plan, the process for that, and the timings for it. Before I do so, I just want to acknowledge a number of colleagues that are here that I've had the opportunity to work with in my own role and in previous roles over the last number of years. I want to recognise Michael Nolan from Transport Infrastructure Ireland, who I worked very closely with in my last job and worked with his agency very closely with in my last job, who are going to be the epicentre of the delivering a fair bit of what I'm going to talk about in a few moments' time. I also want to recognise Michael Goss from Irish Water, who's here, who's a man who I've worked with in his role in Irish Water, who is a fantastic example of what a creative professional can look like in delivering water infrastructure across the city of Dublin. And I see Tom Parlin is here as well, who's also raised many of the issues on behalf of his association that you touch on in this strategy and in other reports of your group in recent years. So if I move on to capital and where it stands at the moment, I want to open up by making a very political point. And the political point is that I believe the context in which we look at capital investment in Ireland, Europe and across the world is likely to change in the coming years. If I look at where I sit at the moment here within our own country, and this has been touched on in the contribution that Dermot made a few moments ago, I see the mismatch between the demand for capital infrastructure and the ability of an economy to plan, pay, and then supply that capital infrastructure, and the societal friction that is generated by the gap between supply and demand has been a big part of the kind of difficulties that we're grappling with at the moment. And when you widen that definition to include, as you will all know, aspects of capital infrastructure like public housing, like private housing, and see the level of anxiety that causes, I think it goes some way to explaining the kinds of challenges that governments and policy makers are facing in many different parts of the world at the moment. And if you look at our own economy at the moment, we have a level and quantity of demand for infrastructure that is a consequence of people who are planning for a sustained recovery, is a consequence of people who are feeling a recovery. But we have an economy and we have a system within the Eurozone which is at a different phase in terms of our ability to pay for that infrastructure, plan for it, and then go and make it happen. And that, I think, is one of the very big challenges that we're all going to collectively face in the coming years in terms of how we manage that gap. And that feeds into the first area that I want to touch on, that has already been touched on here this evening, in terms of, to quote the shampoo ad, the science bit, the figures in terms of where we are at the moment. If I look at the figures of where we are at the moment, in 2016 we invested around probably to 4.1 billion euro in capital investment in terms of public expenditure. As we move into 2017, that figure will increase by 420 to 425 million euro. However, if you look at that capital investment as a percentage of what we make and sell within our country, or in other words, as a percentage of our national income, it's between 2.6 to 2.8% of our national income. And if you compare that with where we were historically, at a time of stable economic growth, at different points in our economic performance, and if you were to look at a 50-year average for Ireland, we've invested at around 3.8 to 4% of our national income in capital formation. And if you compare us to countries that we're competing against at the moment, they've managed to stay in that spectrum at a time when we've moved back. Now, I contend, and will stand over the fact that the choices that got us to that point, for other reasons, were the right choices to make. But there's no doubt at all now that because of those figures, the gap between what is needed, what peer economies are delivering, and where we want to move is there. And how we are looking to recognise that in the short term at least is, as additional resources become available, look to prioritise capital investment to deliver a solid phased closing of that gap. And that's the reason why for 2017 versus 2016 the increase will be between 10 to 11% versus a year ago, at the time when we will have current expenditure increasing by around 3% versus a year ago. All that being said, and that leads into the second area, the gap that we have there is one that we have work to do to close, as I said, in a phased way. And that's why the capital plan that the last government committed to and is making happen is so important. That is a plan that is in place up to 2021, 2022. It commits to around 42.5 billion euro worth of capital investment, just over 27 billion directly from the Exchequer, and the other 14 to 14.5 billion euro through our semi-state organisations across the country. When we deliver that plan across the coming years, and I'm confident that we will, that will bring our investment as a percentage of the national income we hope to have by that point up to around 3.8%. So we'll be moving into the space towards the middle and end of that plan to where we have been in the past, but to where many economies that we are competing against are now. And as we deliver that plan and create the framework for that plan, we hope that in turn will enable the delivery of the kind of infrastructure, the absence of which at the moment is contributing to the kind of difficulties that I referred to a moment ago. So what does tangible delivery look like in terms of the plan at the moment? Well, you can see the visible signs of that at the moment. That is a plan that will be paying for the completion of Lewis Cross City. It's a plan that will pay for the delivery of a new children's hospital. It's a plan that will deliver the completion and the construction of a number of new national roads projects across the country. But it's also a plan that needs to make more progress in other areas. So, for example, we have a commitment in relation to a metro project for Dublin, but a metro project which at this point won't be open until 2023. We have plans in place that are being delivered all over the length and breadth of the country for new primary schools. We're delivering a new primary care centre every month in our country. So that is all progress that is happening at the moment. But what I'm very much aware of is that kind of delivery, particularly in the context of the uncertainty that our country is going to have to manage as a consequence of decisions that are happening elsewhere. We have to look at how we can improve that investment and how we can make sure that investment then delivers good value for the taxpayer who I represent. And that then leads on to the third area, which is our review of that capital plan. What Minister Noonan and I agreed in the middle of last year is that the midterm expenditure framework for our country, which should see, if we can maintain a degree of stable economic growth of between 3 and 3.5% for the next 3 to 4 years, has the ability to deliver a further €5 billion worth of resources for capital investment. We have made the decision now that we will prioritise housing, and public housing in particular, for a strong share of that investment. So Minister Coveney, in his Rebuilding Ireland plan, announced that we will invest a further €2.4 billion in housing across the lifetime of the plan. But we still have unallocated capital expenditure that we will need to make a decision on across 2017 in terms of what projects that we want to do, that we might be able to do a bit quicker, or whether there's new projects that the state should be delivering. And that's going to be the objective of the review of the capital plan, which I aim to secure cabinet approval to now in the next couple of weeks. In terms of how we're going to do it and the process for doing it, I think there's two elements that are worthwhile emphasising to you now. The first one is one of the reasons for doing that is that Minister Coveney across the same time period is aiming to complete his work on Future Ireland, which is looking at how we deliver a revised spatial strategy for our country. And secondly, I believe it's very important to make choices in relation to that if additional resources become available, and if we stand by a principle of trying to prioritise capital investment for those resources as they materialise, what are the choices that we want to make? And my objective is that by the second half of this year, we'll be in a place where we'll have that work done. So in terms of concluding comments on where we are, I hope what that is going to do is provide a framework in which many of the objectives that Caroline and Dermot have talked about for the engineering profession, that we can create a context in which you'll be able to deliver that. One thing I'm going to be determined that we deliver across that period is, while there's understandably going to be a lot of focus on the levels of investment that we have, and I've touched on this myself in the first part of my contribution, what we're not going to move back to is a situation where we have projects chasing money. Because if we end up back in that place, we're going to end up delivering projects at a higher cost than I believe we should be doing. And what I'm never going to do is compare levels of investment that we have now or in the future to cash levels of investment that we had in the past. Because if we get to that point, we're going to end up in a cycle where we will be delivering infrastructure at a higher cost than I believe it is in the interests of the taxpayer to do. And that's why my department and our role in the government decision-making process are going to be so important. But if I end where I begun, I do believe the political context for capital investment is changing. I've always been very clear since I came into this role that I want to see capital investment. Much of this has been influenced by my own time as Minister for Transport. Want to look at how we can plan it better, want to look at how we can give greater security and confidence regarding what is going to happen when. And that is why I have decided that even though the current capital plan is really only in its second year of existence, I do believe it's important that we review it now. And the outcome of that should hopefully be clarity regarding what we're going to do when, and indicators to stakeholders like you that if resources do begin to materialise in the way that we are planning for them to materialise, this is what we are going to do with it. And that ultimately will deliver the most important thing of all for people like me in public life, which is trying to meet the needs of people that I'm privileged to represent and a government that I'm privileged to be part of, trying to meet the needs of our citizens in a way that is sustainable financially and in a way that is sustainable socially for all in our country. And the work that you do and the work that I'm aiming to do, I believe will be a pivotal part of making that happen. So I want to wish all of you, Engineers Ireland, the very best of luck in the delivery of your strategy now across the coming years. And I hope my words here have provided a bit of context for what we want to do to help you with the delivery of your goals. Thank you.
Thank you, Minister, and in particular thank you for giving us that level of insight into the thinking that you have and the thinking at cabinet level in respect of some of the issues that the audience here would find of particular relevance and importance. So we gave a commitment to the Minister that we would have this between 6 and 7 p.m. and just very conscious of time. So I'm going to wrap it up at this stage. Thank the Minister very.
If you'd like to do a few questions, there'd be no trouble.
Wonderful. Okay.
I did say a few, but given that I got a round of applause before I even said anything.
There you go.
Given that we started late because I had a chat with you all beforehand, I'd be very happy if you so wish.
Well, that is very generous
of
of
course,
you.
if you say no now.
No, I'm sure that we don't have a mic in the room, but I'm sure there are probably people here who maybe would like to ask a question or perhaps make a remark to the Minister. So is there anyone that I would like to lead off?
Minister, just, thank you very much. I found it very interesting. Just a suggestion. A number of years ago, I can't remember how long ago it was, there was a workshop in Dublin where there was money chasing projects. I understand the difference. Whilst money is always tight, there's always a lot of money out there. But sometimes it can be difficult to find projects that you want to invest in. And maybe the department could facilitate some kind of conference, probably more a type of workshop where people could come and know where to go that want to do things, that have capital to invest in the country. Yeah. Government can set policy, the private sector can deliver some of the infrastructure, but it can be sometimes difficult to know where to go.
Yeah, and that is a comment that is going to be particularly important now in the next few months, because the European Investment Bank are now opening up an office here in Dublin. We have a new Vice President of the EIB in Andrew McDougall, and they are looking to get the ball rolling now about looking at to see if there are different forms of finance that might facilitate projects. And what I am aiming to do is that when we complete our review of the capital plan, see if we can come up with a mechanism of some kind. Could well be a meeting, could be a group that does provide a portal by which investors or private finance might be more aware of the investment opportunities that there are in Ireland. What I would say to you is that we do have a lot of interest at the moment in this area. We have a lot of people who are approaching the government and our agencies who want to fund projects. But the challenge that we have in all these areas is, we have to make sure that if we have private finance playing a role in the delivery of public projects, that we're crystal clear how this is classified on the sovereign balance sheet. We've gone through tough experiences on that recently, and we need to get complete clarity on that before we move forward on anything else.
Thank you. Anyone else would like to ask a question?
More of a comment to the Minister, and I think it's very important when you see the auditors there with great exit happening. And when we look at our investment in infrastructure, there's a huge opportunity now to start focusing on how we can develop the country. And I think, it's very important that we take that on board and we try and deliver our projects that will help us to be more competitive on the onset of great exit. And more comment than anything else, and inviting that we start that as a strategy and deliver it in the near future.
I couldn't agree more. I mean, I made reference to it in my own contribution there. It's explicitly the point that you made there in terms of Brexit and what it will mean. And I'm also very much aware of the regional dimension to your point. As you spend time in the communities of the northwest of our country and look at how they feel about Brexit, how businesses feel up there at the moment. Looking at how that area can be better supported, which has infrastructure deficits anyhow.
Well, I am from Sligo.
Okay.
So
You'll be understanding well, and I'm well aware of many of the road demands and needs that were in your own county from my last role and still are in my current role. How we look at that and what we can move forward is really vital, and that is one of the reasons why we have decided we have to quickly reassess now where we are with capital expenditure.
Tom, you wanted to say something?
Yeah, thank you, Minister. Is there clarity at the moment, Minister, with regards to the fiscal rules and whether there is more leeway now in the review than there was previously, or is that still a major factor?
There is certainly more clarity than there was. Excuse me. And we have had some good engagements now with the European Commission in this area, all in the area of housing. So there is growing clarity regarding how we're going to do it. And as you know, in the current fiscal rules, there's already flexibility. There's already a differentiation between how current expenditure and capital expenditure is treated when it comes into their accounting in fiscal space, and that wonderful concept of fiscal space and how it all works. So we're making progress in it, but we still have more work to do, is the answer. And Minister Noonan is on record now, quite recently, been calling for greater recognition of capital expenditure in how it's treated, particularly in small open economies like our own. And particularly small open economies like Ireland, who are so different from a demographic point of view versus other members of the European Union. And that means the capital expenditure needs that we have are so much greater than other countries that were in the Eurozone with.
Okay, I think if are others. Oh, yes.
Thank you very much, Minister. Very helpful. In terms of the, shall we say, uncommitted capital availability that you looked at, which is 2.5 billion approximately, taking a housing element, and conscious of the President's remarks this evening, what mechanisms are you thinking putting in place to ensure, shall we say, that the various alternatives are evaluated, shall we say, adequately professionally as well as politically?
Yeah. Well, that is where my own department plays the fulcrum role, and I ultimately, with my officials, decide what we do, and then I get cabinet support to do it, as is the case with the budgetary process. In terms of mechanically how we will do it, we have a cost-benefit appraisal process that will generate returns and make an analysis available to them. Everything that we do has to be consistent with the public spending code, which all of you will be familiar with already. But that does only get us so far. Right? And this is where politics come in. And I don't want to depoliticise investments in capital expenditure, because when you depoliticise big decisions like that, then the message you send out is, well, actually, it doesn't really matter what politicians are making decisions, because it's depoliticised. Other people make it. That creates a space that I think could have other consequences, and I don't want to see that happen. But what we have to have happen is better decision making, underway in relation to these projects than we've had at other points. Where we've done a very good job recently. But even on a cost-benefit appraisal process, like CBA only gets you so far. But if you have a rate of return on a primary care centre, medical primary care centre, and you have a rate of return in, for example, building a new metro project, ultimately you have to make a choice in relation to that takes account of other factors like health, like social inclusion in relation to what you do. And that's what I will ultimately do. Thank you.
So, last opportunity for anyone? No? Oh yes, Mert?
Minister, thanks very much for your presentation. As I understand it, money chasing projects, you said, did I understand that you're not in favour of them? I would have thought that they were, for the state of the nation and for the community and for society, it was a very positive thing, and for the economy as well. And there are interests out there that want to put money into the economy and build projects. Could you explain why further? Is it because of value for money or a fear of value for money?
Well, no, what I meant, and I may have got the flow of my words wrong when I was speaking, and I apologise for that. What I meant is I don't want to end up in a place where stakeholders that I manage think there's a certain amount of money available, and what we have to do is go and chase that amount of money. Okay. What I would rather say is, what are the projects that we need to do, and see if we can work backwards from that. See how we can make use of exchequer funding to go and do it, and make the right choices for that exchequer funding. Make sure we get a better value for money doing it, and look at if there are other ways as well in which we might be able to make those projects make them happen. If I get to a point where people are saying, we've spent X billion in the past, why aren't we spending the same now? I don't think that's a healthy cycle to be in. I think instead we should be looking at what are the projects that we want to deliver, and how can we deliver those projects at best value.
Thank you. I think we'll wrap it up now. I suppose one of the things that we did talk about just before we came into the auditorium was that task of identifying investment areas. And Minister, you did say that Engineers Ireland might be a group that you would come back to for participation on maybe an expert panel of some description. And of course, we are very happy to assist you in that respect. We have engineers from all kinds of different disciplines and working in all kinds of different sectors, and we are more than willing and more than happy to participate in any review process that you might have in mind. So that concludes the formal part of this evening. We have teas and coffees and some sandwiches available in Cafe Clyde. Very thankful for the Minister to giving his time to this launch of the strategy this evening. Of course, you're very welcome to stay with us for as long as you wish, Minister, and thank you very much for everybody taking time out this evening on a very cold evening to come to support us in the launch of this document. Thank you.